My name is Celia Lacayo, and I am the Associate Director of Community Engagement for the Social Sciences, and I also teach in the African American Studies and Chicano Studies Department. Today we have a real great treat. We have two folks on today from the Chicano Studies Department who will be talking to us about the amazing work being done in our communities to help and assist folks amidst COVID-19. So first we have Leigh-Anna Hidalgo. And she just finished up her research and is now moving on to an academic position. Hello, Leigh-Anna, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Can you tell us a little bit about your research and how you got involved with this particular organization?
My research is a 6-year visual ethnography with the Los Angeles street vending campaign. And so my project really looked at street vendors' experiences with legal violence and also their resistance against that violence. So I worked with them for 6 years, and how I got involved with People for People was during the first week that the crisis hit. I was really worried about the street vendors that I had been working with, knowing that a lot of them were immune compromised and were elderly, and so they were particularly vulnerable. And so I was scrambling to try to figure out what was out there, and this was during the first week, so there was really nothing out there yet. And so People for People was doing work, was just in the initial stages, and so one of the first things that I did was helping them translate their flyer from English to Spanish, and working with them to make sure that groceries were delivered to a few of the street vendors who I had reached out to who actually were really in need of groceries at that time. And so that's how I got involved initially.
Wonderful. And then we also have with us Rosanna Simons, who is a doctoral candidate in the Chicano Studies Department. Hello, Rosanna, how are you?
Hi, Celia. Thank you for having us. I'm well. My research is about contemporary state surveillance against racialized undocumented migrants here in the U.S. And I engage queer migrant artists to interpret how their performances, sculptures, and video artworks conjure pathways to protection, freedom of movement, and joy beyond the state's view. I also draw on fieldwork of interviews, on participant observations, community-engaged performance collaborations here in Los Angeles, in Miami, where I'm from, and in New Orleans, to demonstrate how artists are using an array of techniques to resist state surveillance. I became involved with People for People Los Angeles actually through Leigh-Anna, as Leigh-Anna was working to start translating some of the social media materials for People LA. I came on board to help getting the bilingual hotline going.
Thank you, Rosanna. So let's get right into it and delve into finding out more about this amazing, critical, important organization, Gente por Gente, or People for People in LA. So we're going to start with Rosanna, who's going to tell us a little bit about the organization.
Sure. So People for People LA is a collective of all LA-based organizers who were brought together by Tavisale Griffin, who is a brilliant historian here at UCLA, along with Ines Salem, who's a powerful storyteller transforming the film and TV industry. And our collective is made up of the bilingual hotline operators, so those of us who are actually on the line Sundays, Mondays, and Tuesdays answering calls from community members. Then we have a team of folks who are actually matching the requests to our volunteer base of runners. And runners are our amazing volunteers who actually go to the grocery store or to the pharmacy and purchase the necessities and the supplies for our community members and deliver them to their door or to wherever they're located at the time. And Leigh-Anna can tell you a little bit more about who we've been serving since March.
So this really began with a good friend of ours, Tabizale, going to the grocery store and realizing that everyone else in line were elderly folks who really shouldn't be going to the grocery store and should have somebody going to the grocery store for them. And so the people that we're currently serving are all across Los Angeles. We're especially focusing on elderly folks and folks that have limited mobility or compromised immunity. So when we think about Los Angeles and who we're serving, we're thinking about street vendors, folks who are unhoused, single moms, and people who are really excluded from federal funding, such as the undocumented community. And we're really staying away from really harmful ideas that are out there about who is deserving of aid. And so we're looking at South Central area in LA is a specific area where there is a lot of need, where we're getting a lot of calls. So we're really serving that area at that moment, and particularly focused in recruiting in that area.
This is important to see how actual research from UCLA is connected to community needs, and how folks are partnering up. Can you each share with us a personal experience you've had working with Gente por Gente? We can start with you, Rosanna.
This past Monday, I was on the hotline taking calls from folks here all over LA, and I think what's been very impactful for me is to realize how many elders especially are feeling really isolated, and not only are they needing the material assistance of food and cleaning supplies, but they also need to know that someone cares about them and that someone is checking in on them. So this past Monday, I was speaking with a gentleman named Kevin, who was just so appreciative and so expressive about what People for People LA meant to him. And as I was hanging up the phone, I could hear him speaking to his wife, who was also present, and just saying, "Isn't that so precious?" as he hung up the phone. And I thought that was very precious. Yeah.
That's wonderful, Rosanna. We know the importance of connecting and people staying in communication with one another, which has been very difficult in COVID-19. So it's very clear these are very powerful stories, and that this organization is making a huge difference. Leigh-Anna, can you share as well?
Yeah, a couple things come to mind. So the one thing that I'll mention is Humberto, one of the street vendors that I worked with for the last 6 years, knowing his situation, knowing that he was unhoused, and he had a lot of medical issues in the last year, I was really worried about him. And when I reached out and was trying to support him, he was very, very hesitant to say what he needed in terms of what kind of food items. And he, just had a lot of pride and was like, I do need help, whatever you can help me with. He didn't want to ask for things. And so just through this bilingual hotline, just seeing like our culture, seeing how in need our communities are, and just the beauty of the people that we're working with has really stood out for me. And then realizing that there is so much need, but there's that cultural barrier of not wanting to share. And so that's something that's really important about the bilingual hotline. And I'll also say that this week I spoke with an elder named Kathy, and just like Rosanna was sharing, it was really beautiful just to see. She just wanted to talk. We talked for a good 30 minutes, and one of the big issues that she was having is that her cell phone doesn't allow her to apply for a lot of the things that are out there that require you to have a certain kind of phone, and she doesn't have access to that kind of phone as a woman who's approaching 80. she doesn't have the know-how of technology and smartphones. And so that's a really big barrier for a lot of elders right now. And for her, it was really scary because a lot of these government assistant programs and other nonprofits that she had been applying for, they were telling her that they would get back to her in 3 weeks, but her needs were right now. And so I think that's something important that we're doing, is trying to meet those needs now. And so it's been really great to talk to elders and just know that it is very meaningful for them to know that they're not alone and they're supported.
So can you all tell us how others who want to get involved, whether it can help or volunteer, or to want to speak to an elderly folk or someone in the community, and if there are if Spanish is needed, or what are kinds of things that people can do right now?
So what we need right now, we do need volunteers. We really want to continuously building our network of volunteers. Especially our volunteers who are actually the ones who are making grocery runs, going to the grocery store, putting their bodies really on the line for their community. So we're seeking to really increase the amount of runners that we have so that we are not sending out the same runners multiple times a week. We really want for People LA as a mutual aid collective to be sustainable and to be long-term. So in order for our runners to not burn out by going out on multiple runs a week, we really want to build our volunteer base, especially in the South Central and Southeast LA areas. So we're just really looking for folks who are willing to redistribute their resources and their time for strangers who are more vulnerable than they are. We also are continuously fundraising to be able to offer financial assistance to anyone who calls our hotline and needs financial assistance. So if you are unable to become a runner with us, but you still want to support in one way, you can donate to our Venmo. Our Venmo is called People for the People, and 100% of donations go directly to purchasing groceries and other supplies. So everyone working with the People for People LA collective is a volunteer, and so folks are volunteering their cars, their time to go out on these runs, and 100% of donations coming in through our Venmo are just going to purchase groceries and other supplies. If you would like to follow us on Instagram, People for People Los Angeles, even just sharing our call for volunteers or sharing our flyers about the service itself, just helping get the word out to folks in your own community who, if you have an elderly neighbor and you're concerned about who is supporting them, you could give them the phone number for our hotline, which you can also find in our Instagram. Again, it's People for People Los Angeles.
Thank you, Rosanna. Leigh-Anna, did you want to add anything to that, or have anything you want to close out with?
In closing, I would say that our organization is really anchored by the principles of mutual aid, solidarity, cooperation, and not charity. And so we're working from these principles, and we've delivered these necessities to over 200 households so far, and we have a volunteer base of 150 members. And in order to meet the demands that we're getting every week on the hotline, we really need to double those efforts. So if you can get involved, we'd really appreciate it. And again, please follow us. And if you can't volunteer by driving and delivering groceries, you can always get involved by volunteering some of your funds to the Venmo account and spread the word.
Wonderful. So you can see that the work that is being done at UCLA and our community partners is really helping folk, and you can also get involved as well. We'll have all of the hotline and information attached, so you'll be able to click on it. And again, thank you so much for everybody. Again, my name is Celia Lacayo. I'd like to thank Rosanna and Leigh-Anna today, and we will catch you next time on UCLA Social Science. Bye-bye.